This week on Africa Weekly, we go to Mali to follow up on the French troops' campaign against the country's Islamist insurgency. We head to Comoros to see how steaming volcanoes could help plug the gap in its energy supply. And finally, we take you to Soweto to find out how ballet is finding its feet in the country's black townships. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. The International Criminal Court has handed down its toughest penalty ever to the Democratic Republic of Congo's former vice president, Jean-Pierre Bemba, for what it called sadistic and cruel rapes and murders by his troops in Central African Republic in late October 2002.
Conclusion: for the foregoing reasons, the Chamber sentences Mr. Jean-Pierre Bemba Gombo to a total of 18 years of imprisonment.
Bemba's lawyer says they intend to appeal the verdict on the grounds that Bemba was not the commander of the CLM troops who went into the Central African Republic in 2002. Upcoming municipal elections in South Africa have sparked riots in the capital Pretoria, with buses being torched and roads barricaded with rocks and burning tires. The violence erupted late on Monday after factional disputes over the ruling African National Congress choice for Pretoria mayor in the hotly contested vote. The ANC is facing a tough test in the August municipal elections in a climate of increasing unrest. A series of corruption scandals have amplified calls for President Zuma to step down as the country battles falling economic growth and record unemployment. Nigerian businesses have welcomed the government's recent policy to float the naira, which plunged 40% in value on Monday, with the Nigerian Ports Authority predicting a positive impact on the Nigerian economy and particularly to the port industry. The country's economic activity has been stalled by an overvalued currency and a lack of foreign exchange, particularly for imports, because of capital controls. Hundreds of Eritrean asylum seekers went out onto the streets near Tel Aviv in a show of support for the UN probe into the human rights situation in their country. Rallying outside the Israeli mission of the European Union, they called for their recognition as refugees and urged action against Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki, who was found guilty by the UN Commission of Inquiry earlier this month of crimes against humanity. Since 2013, French troops have been fighting a jihadist insurgency in northern Mali. Despite successes in driving out militants from key towns, Islamist groups continue to attack security forces from desert hideouts, undermining efforts to rebuild the broken state and spreading instability across West Africa.
For this nomadic community, in the midst of Mali's vast and desolate northern desert, life is increasingly insecure. French soldiers are patrolling the area, trying to combat a jihadist insurgency. This woman tells them about passing bandits, who she believes killed her brother.
After they left again, I told my brother I'm afraid of those people. But my brother told me that they were not dangerous. He said there were many of them around here, but they won't harm us.
A sense of lawlessness has intensified in parts of Mali ever since radical Islamist groups seized the northern half of the country in 2012. Many state officials fled, leaving an administrative void that is yet to be filled. Though the rebels were soon ousted by an ongoing French military operation, they've continued to mount attacks on security forces from desert hideouts.
The
aim of the terrorists is to destabilize the state by carrying out acts of terror. So they try to destabilize the power in place, damage the credibility of the armed forces, and it's because we're united that we can regain control.
3,500 French troops are currently deployed across 5 countries in the Sahel to maintain cross-border security. They also rely on drones to monitor the area. But a string of recent attacks across West Africa, targeting hotels and restaurants popular with foreigners, has highlighted the changing tactics of jihadist groups in the region. Last March, gunmen killed 19 people at an Ivory Coast beach resort.
While the French have been successful of driving out the Islamists from their urban hubs, such as Timbuktu and Gao, they haven't been able to cover the vast northern area of the Malian desert.
As countries scramble to tighten security, France has promised to increase the number of its troops in Ivory Coast. Meanwhile, in Mali, they continue to face formidable challenges. Last month, 3 French soldiers died after their armoured vehicle ran over a landmine. And as deadly ambushes on UN peacekeepers only intensify, it seems unlikely that France will complete their mission anytime soon.
These steaming vents could be the future for energy in the island nation of Comoros. 2,300 metres above sea level, researchers are looking at the geothermal potential of the Karthala volcano.
Tiny bit more, we're just 1 degree off.
The study has been funded by the African Union, New Zealand and the UNDP. With more investment, a power plant here could be operational by 2022.
We plan to install a plant with an initial capacity of 10 megawatts, and then increase to 20 megawatts, and following that, to progressively meet the energy demands of the country.
The Indian Ocean archipelago is facing a desperate energy crisis, with hours-long power cuts hitting everything from hospitals to small businesses. On the main island, only 6 out of 15 generators supplying the public are working. The African Development Bank was supposed to finance renovation, but nothing has been done in years.
Comoros needs to have electricity now, not tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but today. In the future, in the short and medium term, we should be able to envisage guaranteed production. But for now and going forward, we need to improve production and the network.
Comoros is also exploring offshore oil and gas fields, and a highly polluting fuel oil plant should be operational by 2018. Meanwhile, the economy is up in smoke, with 1 in 2 young people unemployed.
These dancers in Soweto are part of a new wave of ballet enthusiasts in South Africa's black townships, mastering a dance that for years was reserved for the country's white minority.
I also wanted to do ballet when I grew up, but we couldn't because there was no ballet in townships. We had to go out in town and pay for the lessons. So I was very excited when I heard about this program.
1 morning a week, Soweto's new ballet teachers are taught by Maria, a dance teacher from Cuba. She's used to training much more experienced teachers and has to be patient with her new recruits.
It's a difficult experience for me because in Cuba, teachers have been studying ballet for 8 years, but not here. So what do? I begin by teaching them the basics of classical dance. Concentration is also very important, as much as passion.
Maria's students become teachers in the afternoon, taking the children through the moves they've just learnt.
I like dancing more than anything else. It's nice. I like it. It makes me happy.
Teaching classical dance in the townships has been the brainchild of South Africa's international ballet competition, and the head of the project isn't hiding his ambitions.
The point of the program is indeed to find the ballerinas of the future. When Benjamin Malipied was the director of the Paris Opera, he was talking about the lack of transformation in the Paris Opera. And so I would love in 8 years or 10 years a young kid from this project to land up in the Paris Opera.
The project aims to train 1,000 black teachers over 3 years, who in turn will train thousands more children, bringing ballet to a new generation of dancers who've been excluded for so long.
Next week, we'll meet the children in South Africa's violent Cape Flats, combating the stress of gang violence through meditation. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.